Hello, everyone, and welcome back. My name's Michael. I am the Red Light Historian, and let's make some history. So I was meandering through Target the other day when I came across this Indiana Jones Lego set, and I thought, this could be a really good opportunity to go over some Egyptology. My initial thought was to look at an American explorer like Theodore M. Davis, who was active around the early 1900s, but then I thought, why not look at someone who many consider to be the original Indiana Jones, Giovanni Belzoni? And then I had a spark of inspiration. What if I built you guys the Lego set while telling you the story of Giovanni Belzoni? Let's get to it. Once again, I'd just like to say hello and welcome everyone back to the channel. Before we get into Giovanni Belzoni, I think we should probably do a short discussion on Orientalism, which is a conceptual term that was coined by Edward Said. In 1978, he wrote a book called Orientalism, which basically described how the West views Eastern cultures. A lot of how these cultures are viewed are through written dialogues created by the West, basically making them out to be more exotic than what they actually are and kind of giving them almost like this magical, whimsical sort of feel to their culture. You can really see this play out in England, especially in the 15 and 1600s, in what is often coined as pharaoh fetish. During this time, a lot of people in England would use a lot of products from Egypt, these products mostly being even mummies themselves, such as mummy paint or mummy brown, or mummia, I believe is how it's pronounced, which is basically what they thought of as medicine. And to make this medicine, it was basically just ground up mummy, which they would then ingest. Kind of disgusting, not for me, but you know, each their own, I guess. All of this really ties back to where the mindset of the people were at that time, which basically brings us to Giovanni. Giovanni Belzoni was born in Rome on November 5th, 1778, along with 13 other siblings. After several years, they eventually moved and settled in the city of Padua, Italy. They weren't particularly well off. Giovanni's father was a barber, whom also taught him the trade of barbering as well. At the age of 16, Giovanni left for Rome. He left to go back home. Apparently, he had a nasty breakup and decided to join the monastery. Instead of joining the monastery, he decided to study hydraulic engineering instead. While Giovanni was studying in Rome, Napoleon began his conquest of Italy, which caused Giovanni to decide to get the heck out of Dodge, to leave Italy altogether, and began wandering around Europe. And after traveling up to the Netherlands, he was almost imprisoned, which caused him to decide to leave and settle down in England in 1803. While living in England, to help make ends meet, he did a number of odd and end jobs. One such job that he performed was a barber, which was the trade he learned from his father. The other job was being a strongman in the local fair. While working for the fair, he was known as the Patagonian Samson and would perform his stunts at the Sadler Wells Theatre in London, England. To help give you an idea of Giovanni, he was pretty big. He was 6'7". He was a big boy. One of his more popular routines would be to carry 12 grown men at once across the stage. This immense size and strength that he held would come in handy down the line once he began living in Egypt. Before this, though, he fell in love with a girl named Sarah Bain, whom he married. He then began socking away money, then decided to take his act across Europe. He performed his strongman routine in several countries, including Spain and Portugal, but his story in Egypt really began in Malta. During his travels, he contemplated about moving to Constantinople in hopes of making some money, But while in Malta, he ran into a man named Ismail Gibraltar, which would set his life on a completely different track. In Egypt, Ismail ran a land reclamation and irrigation program. This piqued the interest of Giovanni, since Giovanni had a slight background in hydraulic engineering and thought that this could be a foot in the door for him. After some conversation, Ismail thought that Giovanni's background in hydraulic engineering could be a boon for him in his program. This caused Ismail to invite Giovanni back to Egypt and also allowed him to be able to meet with the Pasha of Egypt at the time, who was Muhammad Ali. The Pasha is just a title of someone with a high rank within the Ottoman Empire. Seeing this as an avenue back into hydraulic engineering, Giovanni took Ismail up on his offer and made his way to Cairo. In 1815, Giovanni officially made his decision to leave Malta and head to Egypt, where he showed off one of his hydraulic engineering designs to the Pasha. His overall design was focused on an ox-driven water pump which could affect water levels of the Nile, helping with irrigation. Although this design actually worked, the Pasha was not interested. However, he did allow Giovanni to live in Egypt for a little bit longer. This extra time in Egypt allowed Giovanni to be able to meet with the British consul Sir Henry Salt. Salt was looking for someone to help bring Egyptian artifacts back to England. At the time, this seemed like a match made in heaven for Henry Salt, since Giovanni had a huge 6'7" frame as well as a background in engineering. This essentially meant that Giovanni had the brains and the brawn to be able to get ancient Egyptian artifacts out of hard-to-get-to tombs and get them back to the British Museum. Once their partnership was official, in June of 1816, Sir Henry Salt sent Giovanni to Thebes to excavate a 9-foot-tall granite bust of Ramses II, which weighed over 7 tons. People already knew about this bust. In fact, in 1799, while trying to conquer Egypt, Napoleon actually already tried to get this bust. I'm tired of calling it a bust. It's actually now known as Younger Memnon, but Napoleon was unable to get the Younger never mind, I'm going to say bust. But Napoleon was unable to get the bust out of Egypt. Like I said, this thing was 9 feet tall, 7 tons. It was a massive piece of rock. So Napoleon thought it would be a good idea to blow it up. They apparently drilled a hole in the shoulder of the bust, in which they were going to put some TNT to just blow the snot out of it. I guess he thought it was easier to put it back together than to just pull it out of the sand. Kind of wild. However, for some reason, Napoleon decided not to go along with this plan and just left it, and then continued on with his conquest. Apparently, taking Europe was a little bit more of a bigger deal than trying to take a bust out of Egypt. However, the man, the myth, the legend, Giovanni, was able to remove this bust in 17 days. With 130 men by his side, using palm fiber rope, rollers, and poles, Giovanni was successful in removing the Younger Memnon and had it moved to the Nile. From the Nile, it was shipped up to Alexandria, where it was then further moved to the British museums.
Why did I do this?
It was officially displayed in 1821. So there was kind of a theme to Giovanni being able to do what the French couldn't during this time. In 1817, the French consul of Egypt, Bernardino Dravetti, offered Giovanni the sarcophagus of Ramses III. Bernardino knew where the sarcophagus was, but was also unable to move it. Giovanni decided to give it a shot and was able to get the sarcophagus back, where then he offered it to Salt, who then sold it to the Louvre in Paris. However, Giovanni did keep the lid to the sarcophagus, saying that it was the best piece he ever gathered for himself. However, he did eventually donate the lid to the Fitzwilliam Museum. So it's pretty safe to say Giovanni wasn't doing anything standard when he was removing these items from pyramids and tombs, which actually in 1817, he entered the Valley of Kings and used a battering ram to help open some of the doors that were giving him trouble. It was also in the Valley of Kings where he found the sarcophagus of the Egyptian pharaoh Seti I. This sarcophagus was pretty amazing. It was made entirely of alabaster, which is shiny and translucent and has like almost a pearl-like quality to it. And Giovanni, being the boss that he is, decided to carve his name into it. I guess he just wanted to be memorialized along with the Egyptians. On August the 1st of 1817, Giovanni and a group of Nubian villagers entered the temple of Abu Simbel. However, they didn't really find anything there and decided to leave. They did not really enjoy how hot it was. It was roughly 54 degrees Celsius, which would be about 130 degrees Fahrenheit, making the working conditions incredibly hard and just not a very enjoyable experience. However, while working there, they did decide to carve their names into the north wall of the temple. Further along in his travels, like the bull in the china shop that he was, he stumbled upon some sarcophagi that were made of terracotta. Instead of taking the entire sarcophagus with him, he decided just to remove the heads that were attached to the lids. Moving on March 2nd, 1818, Giovanni found the entrance to the second pyramid of Giza. At the time, he kind of expected to be the first person to enter the tomb. However, upon arriving, he found that everything in the tomb was already taken out, meaning he was not the first person to enter the tomb. He was, however, the first person from Europe to enter it. In the same year, 1818, Giovanni also opened the Pyramid of Khafre and was able to find and identify the Ptolemaic port of Berenice. Later in his journey, while working at the island of Philea, he found the Temple of Isis. While working at this new site, he was tasked with moving a 9-meter-tall obelisk. In normal Giovanni style, he took excellent care of this artifact and returned it safely to Sir Salt. Kidding, of course. While en route, a pier that was holding up the obelisk collapsed, plunging this item into the Nile River. They were able to find and fish it out and made its way to England. But I think that does sort of display the kind of their mentality at the time. It wasn't super safety first. It was just like, get what we can get and get out. Take the good stuff and go. This is what kind of makes a lot of the archaeologists today pretty upset with Giovanni, since a lot of the work that he did ended up destroying a lot of the other ancient artifacts that are in the tombs, as well as just defacing a lot of the artifacts and tombs themselves. Giovanni did eventually return to England in 1819. Many of the antiquities that he brought back were shown in what was called Egyptian Hall in England. The hall itself was ordained in a very Egyptian-esque style. An example of this occurred in 1821 when Giovanni's findings of the tomb of Seti I were put on display. And the items placed within it really helped show what Edward Said was talking about with the sense of Orientalism, lending to the mythos of how Europe saw Egypt at the time. The idea was to give viewers an immersive taste of these Egyptian spaces. Unfortunately for Giovanni, he kind of went the same way many of the tombs that he raided did as well. Not very pretty. On December 3rd, 1923, Giovanni died of dysentery in Mali while looking for Timbuktu. He was 45 at the time, and he left his wife, Sarah Bain, behind, who did live out a full life without him. Today, he has a bit of a mixed history. Some remember him as being a great hero or the original Indiana Jones. However, others remember him as one of the greatest plunderers of all time. Many see him as a founder in Egyptology, one of the saviors of ancient Egyptian artifacts, while others view the decimation that he committed in the process of saving these as being horrendous and a disservice to history. As a historian, I can't I feel like I can't judge them based on their time in comparison to what our values and practices that we perform today. They didn't have the same ideologies surrounding historical conservation that we do today, So trying to compare the two, it's not right. So I'm not gonna overly criticize him for what he did, although I think I can be disappointed in the loss that historical knowledge because of the work that he did. And that's basically the story of Giovanni. He lived a pretty wild life, did a lot of traveling, got to see a lot of incredible sights, and played a pretty significant role in history today. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed it and you were able to learn something. If you are still interested in Orientalism whatsoever, you could look out The Women of Algiers, as well as look at the picture postcards from French colonial Algeria. However, I will note that it is not for the faint of heart. They're pretty wild. So I'm not going to make any links or post any pictures of them or anything, but it is something you can look up if you're still interested in the topic. My initial plan for this video was to kind of go over an entire history outlining Europe's role in Egypt. However, after my last video, I just didn't think I could really make another 45-minute video and make it with any quality that I would like to put into a video. I'm just not quite there yet. Also, my last upload, YouTube said that I needed to upload, 3 videos within 90 days in order to make my channel monetizable. So I need to be able to make shorter content so that way I can make sure that I can upload them, cut them, edit them down in time to be able to meet that deadline. So that's not to say that I won't make longer form content. I would still like to. I want to be able to get my skill set down enough where I can do that and have everything go in a good schedule. So my plan moving forward is to make slightly shorter videos that I can use to help build up my skill set as far as editing goes and just getting comfortable in front of the camera. And then I would like to branch out and do some longer form content down the road. We'll see. Maybe down the road I'll even get to a point where I'll do like 2 channels, and I'll have one channel be like a short form content, one be like a long form content. I don't know. This is only the second video, so we'll see what happens. But anyways, it seems like the Brickmaster's just about done, so let's cut back to him. I think that's probably about it. Now that we've completed this masterpiece, I guess let's take some glam shots. Well, in trying to get the Lego set and myself in picture together, I accidentally broke one of the legs of my tripods, so that's just not gonna happen right now. But anyways, I hope you had fun, I hope you learned something, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Have a great rest of your day, and the rest was history.